Tyler, we got Austin back on the podcast. He was on episode 308.
He's collected himself.
He has collected. We've given him some time.
He's risen out of the ashes. He's like a phoenix.
If you didn't hear that episode, go back, listen to episode 308. But he had a little snafu with an inspector, but we'll recap it. I share some of my experience with a recent missed inspection. Not one. I don't even know if it's two. It might even be three that I really royally screwed up on. But thankfully, I have a good team behind me that navigated through that.
I mean, you can't miss an inspection if you don't have a permit on it, right?
Listen, brother, let's get to the story, you know?
That's a little trade hack.
Just build it without a permit. If you finish it, you don't need a permit.
No inspections if you don't have permits.
Touche.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was a good conversation. I enjoyed it. I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like a lot of really important stuff. I had no idea that's the direction that was going to go, but like very important, very useful. And I feel like it was just quality interaction, quality discussion.
Yeah. Austin's a great dude. He is someone that advocates for this industry and always looks to better himself and the industry as a whole. And, he asked the question, like, what can he do as, an individual to help the industry? What can he implement? What can he share? What can he do to make the industry better? And, we get into that in a pretty deep conversation, but, cliff notes on that is doing what he's doing now.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get into it. This podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. Builders and contractors agree that Andersen is the window and door brand with fewer callbacks. Don't let the hidden costs of callbacks, bad reviews, or racked windows ever set you back.
Vinyl windows might seem cheaper up front, but 100 series products are the sneaky value play thanks to their lasting quality. They also have a modular design for easier installs, saving you valuable time.
Fewer callbacks can lead to more 5-star reviews and can help you make sure your business is built to last. Plus, there's always Andersen's 10-year limited warranty on finish and fading on top of the Andersen Pro programs to help make your business even more resilient. For more information, head over to andersenwindows.com/pros. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. Think AI can't work for your business? Well, think again. Top builders are already using AI to put themselves ahead of the competition, and you can too.
Check out this webinar co-hosted by Buildertrend and the Association of Professional Builders, where they discuss all things AI in construction and how to get your team on board.
You'll learn how AI can streamline your workflows, reduce errors, add hours back to your day, and make your business more profitable. Plus, discover the right solutions for your business and how to customize them for your needs. Head over to buildertrend.com/MCAI to register today and skyrocket your business into the future. This podcast is brought to you by Velux. Skylights are a surprising way to add interest to a home, and we hear that homeowners are so happy after installing Velux skylights that they wish they had installed more. Velux's cut, place, and seal installation makes it easy to add natural light to your build, and innovative technology including built-in rain sensors, solar power, and 3 layers of leak protection makes skylights a great addition to any project.
Yeah, and most builders agree they're even easier to install than a vertical window while still creating an impressive space. Visit veluxusa.com/remodeler to learn more about their industry-leading installation and warranty.
What's up, Austin?
What's going on, guys?
Are you in jail for skipping an inspection, or how'd you make out?
Was I in jail? No, we made it out alive. Actually, it wasn't that bad.
What happened?
What happened? It's been a while now. We had to remove some siding and some sheathing on the exterior to prove that anchor bolts were where they were supposed to be, and cut out a few pieces of sheetrock right at the wall to ceiling transition to make sure the truss screws were done as needed. And
was he cool about it?
Or that was basically the only thing he wanted to look at. Check some stuff in the attic for fire stopping and whatnot, but that was all fine.
But was he like totally cool, or? Like, was he
Yeah,
trying
like
to
he
get
showed
hard
up the
ass?
next day with a completely different personality. It was an interesting deal. A power trip on day one, and then I think he must have slept well that night. Maybe got laid.
That's what I was gonna say, but I got to be the professional here.
It's
Never,
the
you
family
never
program.
know.
Sorry.
Yeah,
You never know. Yeah, last time, when were we just talking about that? Maybe the last podcast that we were saying you were coming on. We were like, last time we spoke with him, we did not speak about what we wanted to get into at all because of what had happened.
Yeah, that was a fun week.
and then we were talking. I guess it was Morgan was saying about how you landed some brand partnership, like a very large brand partnership. I guess a while ago.
We're working on a couple. Nothing's actually come to fruition yet, either for our desire not to partner with a certain brand or for a brand not quite being sold on what they would get out of a partnership with us. So nothing on the books yet. Still working on a couple things. Been low on the priority list.
Yeah, I mean, you have a million things going on. So I just to like summarize that conversation, that experience. So he wakes up next day, comes on site. You guys, take apart a day's worth of work? Like,
Well, we should probably brief everyone quickly. Backlog.
Let's just redo the whole thing.
Yeah, let's live it up. Let's live it one more time. So basically, you went to get final inspections on a project that was it a spec?
Yes, it was a small spec house.
Yeah, so it was a spec house, so it wasn't a customer or anything like that. And when they came for final inspection, they realized that you never had scheduled or gone through with a rough inspection, like framing.
Correct. All the MEPs were all fine and inspected and passed, but there was never a rough framing inspection.
So basically, they said that you were going to have to like rip everything apart, and this was a huge mistake on your behalf, and they require you to like take everything off the walls, open up all the walls. Long story short, you met with the inspector again, and he had a different attitude for whatever reason may have happened in his personal life. And you got away scot-free, huh?
Not exactly scot-free. We did have to do a little bit of light demo, but in the grand scheme of things, other than a bruised ego and a little bit embarrassed and explaining the whole situation to however many thousand people listen to this show, yeah, scot-free.
Did anyone reach out to you, like personally, to talk about it? So just just hold on, this entire story was on episode 308, so not too long ago. If you guys want to go back and listen to it, 308 Modern Craftsman. But I was curious if anyone reached out to you either to basically to share sympathy or offer advice or just ask for further explanation as to what happened.
I got a couple DMs. A couple of the guys that I met at the Coalition Summit reached out.
Yeah.
Just to figure out the whole story.
I
spent a little bit of time in the comments section on that post when you guys posted the episode, which was fun.
Yeah.
One of the guys called us unskilled frat boys, which is
that's amazing.
Rookie mistake. You never go into the comments.
I was entertaining.
Unskilled frat boys.
Yes. So the term UFB, unskilled frat boy, gets thrown around here often now.
Hashtag.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the best thing that came out of that whole deal was the UFB. But no, all ended fairly well. Didn't have to move the closing on that house. Like I said, pretty embarrassing. The city thought we were a bunch of idiots, but ultimately worked through it and got our patch back together, and all's well that ends well. Lesson learned.
Nick, you forgot this. Didn't you forget to schedule an inspection, a pretty critical inspection on your property?
Yeah, and I forget if I told the story in that episode, but on our 45 wood oak project, I thought that what the hell was the the title of the inspection is like foundation and as built, and I read it as foundation as built. So I had submitted the foundation as built, and he goes, "All right, I'll come out for an inspection tomorrow." And I went back. I was like, "Why would he need to come out for an inspection?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, he needs to inspect the foundation before we backfill it, and to inspect the anchor bolts." And I immediately put my tail between my legs. I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to be super upfront with you that I made a huge mistake here. I thought that was you were just looking for a foundation as built, and the foundation is not only backfilled, but the entire house is framed." And he lost, like he was like he lost it on me. And he goes, "I don't even know how we're going to deal with this situation. I'll see you on site." And he came out and he was just like beside himself, like, "This is insane. Like, how could you, like, I can't see the anchor bolts, I can't see the foundation backfill." And I was like, "I know that it says clearly in there, like, no photo or video will be, allowed for inspection, but I quite literally have an entire video of us installing every anchor bolt and backfilling the entire foundation. Like, I mean, motifs there all the time." So we took the video and about 100 photos of the foundation with every anchor bolt. And he, ultimately was like, "Okay, we'll accept it, but please don't let this happen again." And it was the same thing.
Noted.
It's like, yeah, no, I know. But, so here, Austin, I'm like, I felt the same way. I'm like, how embarrassing. Like, I'm an idiot, but hey, all ended well. All of a sudden I get a phone call from the city saying, "Hey, we noticed that you installed a water line, um, your project on White Oak." And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Yeah, you don't have a permit to do that." I was like, "What?" I was like, I have the building permit," and they're like, "It's a totally separate permit." And I'm going through my notes and I'm like, every time I've ever done this, it's you go through the water and sewer division in order to get a building permit.
Yeah, how do they issue a building like, what do they, like,
Totally separate. Totally separate.
So even if it's already stubbed into your lot, you still have to get a permit to bring it from the stub in to the house?
Well, we had yes.
Okay.
But we did need to we did need to tie into the street for both sewer and water. We had to replace them. But regardless, the town runs the water line all the way to the meter. So let me just paint the entire picture. I am fully framed. I have an entire slab in the basement. I am digging the driveway up in efforts to get the water line installed. And let me just...
Sorry, I'm picking up a gnarly layer. That's better.
That's okay. And the town calls and says I don't have a permit. So I go back and I'm like, "Hey, we already had this approved. Like, this was reviewed by you guys. Here's the proposed sewer and water layout." They come back. They're like, "We actually don't approve that. I know we reviewed it, but we want it to be changed. And, oh, by the way, you have a 1-inch line noted on the drawing, and it's required to be 2 inches." And I'm like, holy shit. Like, this is a pretty big issue because I have a 1-inch water line that is coiled up into the middle of my concrete slab in the basement that is trenched underneath the concrete slab that got placed the week prior and out into the driveway and coiled
and
up to
copper, not
copper.
What are you doing with a 2-inch water line going into a house?
It's I guess the entire town is super low pressure, so the 1 inch isn't enough. So you have to put 2-inch and a booster pump.
Jeez.
So not only do I have the water in the wrong spot and the sewer going out at the wrong elevation in the wrong spot, but we that's one issue. I don't have a permit, so then I'm figuring the permit out. But on top of all this, the 1-inch water line I have they won't approve. So all this talk about, all right, we'll cut the slab, we'll pull the water line out, we'll install a new one, we'll patch the slab, we'll do epoxy on the concrete floor. You'll never know the slab was patched. Like, And I'm just refusing that that's going to be how we go about this. Like we cannot cut this slab. Like I can't do this. Like there has to be a better way. I'll just abandon that water line. I'll bring the water line in somewhere else. And I spent hours like researching this. I'm like, wait a second. And I called my buddy that does directional drilling. I'm like, is it insane to think that I could directional drill like a water line? He goes, no, but why don't you just use the old water line and pull the new one? I'm like, okay, I like where your head's at. I'm like, how do I like? Let me see how I go about that. So I forget what the terminology is, but I found all these YouTube videos of guys literally connecting new water lines on old ones and sitting in the driveway with an excavator and pulling the new one through. And my site guy's like, no way, like it's 2-inch, like how, like it's, it bends through underneath the slab. Like there's no way we're gonna pull that. And I'm like, well. We're going to try because I'm not cutting the slab.
So you're saying there's a chance.
And so we end up removing the whole staircase because the water line was under the staircase, and they hung the coil of 2-inch copper in the second floor and basically fed it straight down. And I forget how they clamped it. I forget how they connected it to the 1-inch line, but I wasn't on site. But apparently it pulled super smooth. It was all sand where it was laid in anyway. So it pulled super smooth, and it was coming out of the foundation wall, and it was about 6 inches out of the foundation wall, and the thing slipped off, and like it just stopped. And
hey, that's far enough, man. You're out.
I know. And I was like, we're out. We can connect. And long story short, the town came out. They were fine. Everything was good. We had to modify. We ended up having to add a manhole in the driveway for the sewer because they didn't really like the pitch that the sewer was coming out of the house at. And then we ended up having to do like a double wall sleeve on the sewer because it passed underneath like a rain garden. But all in all, the work's done. It was a huge miss on my part, and all of that happened within a matter of like 10 days of each other from me missing the first inspection. So I woke up in actually a cold sweat the other morning at like 4:30 in the morning. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't get my air barrier inspection, like the WRB inspection. Like I literally jumped and I pull out my phone and I email the inspector like at 5 a.m. on a Sunday. I'm like, hey, just looking to schedule my WRB inspection. And I hit send, and I realized that we had already talked, and it's not required because we're doing a blower door. So at like 5:08 a.m. I wrote, hey, my mistake. I forgot that we talked about this, and you don't require it because we'll do a blower door. Have a great day. I'm like,
that guy for sure thinks you're a psycho now.
That guy's like, this kid is a fucking moron. Like, but the best part is I had done a end week a couple of weeks after that, and there was a different inspector that came for my partial framing, and for an hour he just talked about how amazing the project was, like how well it's built, like how it's just so nice to see quality work. I'm like, hey, well, do you mind going to tell your buddy? Just like, I know kind of what I'm doing.
I'm trying to think of the worst inspector interaction I've had. I don't think they haven't been that bad. I mean, just like normal crap, trying to throw their weight around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they just a lot of times just come in with an attitude. Some of them are great though. Like I'd say 4 out of the 5 building inspectors in this town, we have a really good relationship.
I get it though. Like, listen, like you sit in the building department, in like a busy building department, the majority of those people stomp their feet and like bitch and complain and try to get them to do something for them.
Yeah.
And it's just like you're dealing with like literally just assholes all day, and then you got the one person that actually gives a shit what they're doing and isn't trying to pull a fast one. But if that's all you're conditioned to, it's like, of course they're gonna think I'm an idiot. Yeah. Or that I'm trying to pull a fast one, like, because the 9 people before me were.
It is kind of a thankless job.
Totally.
I think it wasn't even that bad. One of the worst was an inspector failed me for something on final inspection that he already passed on rough inspection. And obviously, like, you can do that, But I was like, you are like, I'm here for final inspection. Now you want another rough inspection and then a final inspection. Like at this point, it seems like job security to you. And I was like, I don't even care if you get a final inspection at this point. These are like, it was a town I normally don't work in, like customers I had worked and done a bunch of work for before, but I was like, I'm just not scheduling a final inspection at this point. Your town can pick up on it however many months later. I'm not coming to meet you out here again and even giving you like the gratitude because you're just being such an ass.
You guys pay per inspection?
So not in where we are. No, it's just, I mean, through taxes and stuff like that, they get paid essentially for what they're doing, but it's not like we're paying for it because it's not private inspection companies. It's through the municipality. So we're not necessarily paying for it on our projects.
But a lot of, especially in the city, like sometimes it's challenging to get particular inspections. But if you go and schedule an off hours inspection and you pay it, it's like like they'll do it that day.
Really?
It's like,
they probably get paid extra for it for working off hours.
Yeah, they 100%. So it's like, I can come out there in 2 weeks. It's like, or you can pay whatever the off hours inspection fee is, and it's like, or I'll come out today.
Yeah, it's probably like $100, which is worth it every time.
I mean, you could also pay a private inspection company to come out and sign off on the job and give that to the town. But it doesn't make sense. It's not that hard. We don't. Since every town's doing it, it's not that hard to get inspections. You can usually get them within like 24 to 48 hours of scheduling them.
Yeah, ours are all, for the most part, guaranteed next day.
Yeah, that's nice. What about yours, Nick?
It's depending on I would say most of the time it's within a week.
You're in the city. Why are you even getting inspections? Nobody gets inspections in the city.
Yeah, it depends on what it is, you know?
Chasing rot.
I would say, yeah. Chasing rot around here is hard to sneak by. It's crazy. I mean, Tyler, you know, but it's like we have 3 projects right now that are in one way or the other, just like permitting is apps. Like we have one that's going on 15 months right now.
Oh, for the wetlands crap on the water?
Yeah, there's 2 on the water. One is fully permitted, but the other one, it's like, I actually asked our PM, Matt, the other day. I was like, hey, can you map out all of the approvals that this project has required and like where we stand with them? And I think it's like, I don't know, 6 different, kind of like buckets of people that need to approve it. Everything from like state to town to, it's just.
Well, then if it's wetlands, you get Corps of Engineers involved, and then you're 12 months minimum.
Yeah, it's that, and then it's like one of them is a boathouse, so it's like not only wetlands, but it's also the fact that it's a dwelling on water, and it falls into like a similar approval process as building a bridge for a highway. I'm like,
all right.
And that was the best. Like no one told us that we needed that particular sign off because it's not really like an approval; it's just them rubber stamping it. And they're like, oh, well, you also have this one that has to be rubber stamped. I'm like, well, okay, what's the timeline? They're like, well, that one we actually don't know. That just ends up on their meeting minutes, just kind of randomly, but you won't find out until that meeting. And there's no time frame as to how long it might take. It's just they just decide what goes on that meeting, like the week of. And I'm like, this doesn't work. There's no way that like we're just going to operate in a 5-month limbo of like when this might get stamped.
The system is broken.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, we said we wouldn't talk. I think we decided that we weren't going to talk about inspections, and here we are.
It's a little bit more lighthearted this time around.
It is, yeah. You're not
most inspectors are good though. I mean, they have to deal with. If you like. I would say that we are probably the exception to most. And I mean, most people who are doing shoddy work probably aren't pulling permits in the first place. So there's that they're running into jobs with people looking to bend the rules. But then, like, I don't know, if you've walked other people's jobs, they're usually a mess and they're scheduling inspections or it's not ready for inspectors. Inspectors are wasting their time. they can't get to what they're trying to inspect because it's a mess. They're failing because of stupid stuff because nobody went and checked on the job before they scheduled the inspection. It's like they have to deal with so much crap that I think that if your job site's neat and like somebody's there and they understand that you're not trying to get over on them, they're usually pretty understanding and reasonable. And if there is something that's missing, they're usually like, yeah, just do this. I'll give you the sticker now. You're good to go. At least that's been my experience. There's a handful that have been just a pain in the ass because they're just curmudgeons for whatever reason. And I try and just bite my tongue in those interactions because it's like you're not going to win. But for the most part, they're all pretty good.
Yeah. Job site cleanliness goes a long ways.
Yeah.
Except for, like you said, the wetlands crap. So we went through all that on our property that we purchased. It didn't have any approvals on it, so we needed to get basically a wetlands waiver because it's 6 acres and like the back 4 are deciduous wetlands, which isn't standing water. It's just the way that the grade and like all the farmland over years had been, like it was all farmland and they graded the fields towards the property we bought, and then there's all these little like tributaries that lead to an actual creek. So it's been like that for 200 years when people started farming it. So it's not like an actual wetlands, but if you don't get a waiver to it, it would be a 300-foot buffer from the wetlands delineation. And so it would make like the 2 acres that is not within that area unbuildable, which is why we got like a decent price on it. So we went through that, and the ecologist was basically like, you'll get a 50-foot buffer. You just have to go through this. Should be 3 months. It's always 3 months. And then they ask for an extension. Then they ask for an extension. He's like, you're going to be between 12 and 16 months. And sure enough, that was how long it took. And like everything was on the up and up. There was no kickback. They didn't ask for anything back. It was just going through, and I'd get a hold of the engineer, and they had a spreadsheet of everything that had been done and where it was held up. And there's one person that does the site inspection just to verify that the survey matches, the delineation matches the site conditions. And they were like, yeah, they're having trouble getting out there because of the winter. It's 2 lots down from where I live now, which is on like a main county road, and there's a driveway to the property. And I'm like, we didn't even get snow this past winter. You're telling me that you can't? Like, I literally live 2 lots next to it.
Dude,
like,
I left my jacket at home. I can't go outside.
yeah, there's no they have trouble getting out to the sites in the winter. I'm like, okay. And I asked the engineer, is there anything we can do about this? Nope, nothing. I was like, all right, cool. That's the way it works. But, if they want to put up like a development or something, that's getting pushed through very quickly.
Yeah. It's the wetlands is so interesting. Like we are 45 White Oak. The main reason for the L-shaped house is because the main part of the home is all the existing footprint, which is entirely within the setback zone. And then the L shape on the back left is the only part of the entire lot that's not within the buffer zone. But when
the back corner is the buffer, like when you're facing the house, the back right?
The back left, where the kitchen is?
Yeah.
That's the only part of the entire lot that's not in a buffer zone.
Oh.
Everything
I was going to say.
Everything else is in buffer, and then you have the creek.
Yeah.
But right when we finished I don't remember specifically what day. It was like before we got the foundation in the ground, one of the trees that was protected fell. And I'll never forget, I had my Peterson brick show up for the mock-up. I put the crates down, and the tree fell and landed on top of the crates. Somehow didn't break the brick. But I called the wetlands and the commission, and I was like, hey, like, just an FYI, this tree fell down. They're like, well, we're going to need to do an inspection to make sure you didn't knock it down. And I'm like, okay. And they came out and they're like, how do we know that you didn't knock this down? I'm like, well, if you go around the backside of it, and you'll see that the entire center of it was rotted out. Like it was completely hollow. And they were like, got it. Yep, no problem. But then I forget what they had asked us to do. And I was like, can I just remove the stump? And they're like, well, not really. Like, you need to go. I'm like, this is a dead tree. Like this tree there's nothing here. And they end up letting us do it, but it's like we have another we, we have another project right now. It's on 11 acres, and we have to cross the wetlands, and we have to do a culvert over the wetlands. It's a very, very narrow part. It's not wet. But it's considered wetlands, and it was driving the site work cost up like exponentially to build this culvert. It was like, I don't know, it was like a six-figure, like $100-something-thousand culvert to get over the wetlands. And it was massive. It was like 8 feet wide, 4 feet tall. And I was like, hey, why is this so tall? Like, why, there's no water, there's no water flow. Like, can we just put a pipe and have, the water flow through that? And it was due to, I forget what act it is, but it's
the 100-year flood or whatever it is.
No? critter capture. They want
the old critter capture.
They want the critters to feel comfortable and not claustrophobic. I can't even say that without laughing.
That's crazy.
And I was like, what? Like, if I'm a deer, I'm just gonna walk across the road. And it's a drive, like it was a private driveway, and it ended up being like, because of the length of the driveway, it needed to have a fire hydrant at the house, and so the fire truck had to get back there. So then that was playing into the role of how big it was, because the road, like the driveway, also had to be 18 feet. It was just like, it compounded so fast that we were like, this is insane. Like, it went from like could have been a pipe with just like up and over it to now needing a full-on bridge. And thankfully our site guy was like, what if we used a corrugated metal pipe, like an oblong version of it, basically like take a round one and it looks like they squished it down, and saved a ton of money. And was super thankful for him to suggest that.
So they wanted a bridge big enough for the animals to be able to walk over it?
No, walk through
walk
it.
Under it.
Yeah. So that's like, it had to like, based on the width of it, based on the fact that it had to support a fire truck, and based on the fact that animals had to walk through it, they needed enough clear space to not be claustrophobic.
But they couldn't just go anywhere else to walk across the driveway?
Of course they could.
Damn critters.
Yeah, I know.
Damn critters.
That's the stuff where it's like there's law and there's guidelines, and if like there has to be some gray, like you have to look outside of the language,
dude, and
be like common sense.
We tried. It was
so insane.
It was, it was just like, you have to hit the clear space ratio. And thankfully, it was actually, it's a possible job. And Vincent was like, what if we use the corrugated metal pipe? And in first pass, it didn't seem like it was going to save us much money. But then, going through the exercise, realized it was a far less expensive than building a concrete bridge, essentially, is what we were originally proposing to do.
It's not easy.
No. Awesome.
I just would have abandoned the project.
Screw it.
I had
can have it.
I was on a call with my coach the other day, and he was like, do you ever think that sometimes you just try to force a project into existence? I was like, yeah, I think I do that on every job. And he's like, okay, so you're aware of it. Let's work on trying to stop doing that. I was like, got it. I could probably work on that. Because there's definitely times where it's like, I just push and push and push, because I think it's a fun project. And it's the romantic in me that is like, this would be fun. Let's just figure out how to make the animals feel more comfortable as they cross the little bridge.
You should have built on one of those things in the airport that like they can stand on and just ride across. Like the magic carpet.
Yeah.
That's sick. What were you I interrupted you. What were you going to say to Austin?
I was going to say, what is it that what were we supposed to talk about the first episode?
Oh yeah.
I don't even remember. It's been a bit of a hectic week thus far, so I haven't had much time to like sit down and think about it. But
Well, what do
I
you?
know one of the things I wanted to pick your guys' brains on was like how to make a like obviously you guys are doing what you're doing for the trades and for the industry and making a big impact like broader scale. Like if you're me, kind of boots on the ground, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, what can guys like in your opinion, what can guys and gals like us do that are in the construction industry, in the trades do to promote it to the younger crowd?
It's funny that you asked that. I don't know if I have like a specific answer to that, but I was recording a podcast recently where everyone wants to give back and everyone wants to devote time into promoting trades and getting people involved in the trades. And I realized that if it weren't for this platform and if it weren't for social, like my impact would be very, very limited, right? How many customers am I working for in a year? How many people do I have working for me? How many subs are like within my network that I can basically rub off on and convince that there's a better way to run our businesses within the industry? It's very limited. So I even though I have this perspective, and I like now have this platform, I still view myself as someone more similar to you, where it's like, how many people would I be able to affect on a daily basis if it weren't for this? And I think um, that once you start having employees and once you start working for a larger business and once you start gaining a larger customer base, I think that the biggest impact day to day that most people can have is just creating like the best business model that you can to afford everyone a decent living. Um, whether I mean Nick and I are doing a bunch with pre-construction right now, and it's like if 10% of the industry starts adopting practices similar to what we're pitching and looking to convince people will really elevate their business, like I think that that's the greatest impact we can have on generations to come, because in the big picture it's going to actually change the way that we operate as a business and get rid of the competitive bidding, and realize that you have to have design in place. You have to budget a job before you start it. You have to schedule a job, develop scope. And I think that if, as business owners, we can start to integrate those things into our business, that's the biggest impact we can have to attract people and draw people to our business, where it's just like, hey, this is a viable revenue stream and a viable means for business, where it's not so cutthroat. So I think that it's stuff like that where it's like legitimizing your business
Mm.
and providing an outlet for people to have benefits and profit sharing. And I think as the older generation fades away and we transition into the construction world as we see it today, there's fewer and less contractors. And I think that it really like our opportunity to change the industry is the next, like from now through the next 10 years, because it's almost like we're starting over. And
Hmm.
how do we want to start over? Like, do we want to just keep doing the same shit that everyone's done for so long, or do we finally want to say, hey, let's make a change, this is the way that we're going to do business moving forward? That was a very long answer.
Well, good though.
I would agree. I think one of the things that I struggled with, and I know Tyler and I have talked about, is that you know what we're doing, is obviously like for the betterment of our industry, but there's still the question in our mind, together and individually, as to like, are we doing enough? Are we doing the right thing? Is like, how do we continue to promote? And I think that oftentimes, you know, we, as the three of us here, get caught up in like trying to make a big impact really fast. When the reality is just like by being a better contractor and doing and just promoting, whether it's promoting through social media or just promoting as an individual amongst your peers and a building inspector, like being better at your job is what is the most critical thing that you can do for our industry. And, like Tyler said, it's like, conversations that we have on the podcast, the courses that we're putting together, like all of this is, on one hand, sure, it's a business, and like we're doing it because it's like, here's an opportunity for us to, kind of capitalize on what we've learned over the course of 7 years and then share it. But the reality is it's also to allow, kind of get the fast track in how to, put a process in place. And, and the simpler we can make that, you know the simpler we can deliver that education, the simpler we can make the process, um you know I don't know if implementable is a word, but like, giving the resources to guys that are in this industry in a way that they can implement as quickly as possible is doing exactly that. This is us putting together the resources to better the industry so everyone is working on a more fair playing ground, and kind of counteracting this race to the bottom that we have continued to fight as an industry for, frankly, years. And it, it's it is a slow grind, and it's very real for me right now because I have two projects that, we have, went through the pre-construction process, and we're at a point with both of them that we're not where we wanted to be in terms of like the actual outcome. And it's because despite us having a pre-construction process and trying to follow it, the entire, I'll say, team, meaning like the other parties that are related to the project, weren't operating on the same path. So instead of us controlling that whole process, there was still the broken process being implemented. So for example, like one of them, they basically progressed the design faster than we were putting together pricing. So the design outpaced pricing. And of course, now we're at a point where we're pricing it for contract, and we're way over budget. And it's like the whole point of us being involved in pre-construction is so we can prevent that. So if the client says, I want to spend X dollars, we don't exceed that. We work together and come up with something that meets that criteria. Instead, we have a team that is designing too fast and designing things that knowingly are outside the budget, but would be fun to understand if we can pull it off. Can we extend the budget for these cool details? And that's just a broken process. And frankly, it's, in the grand scheme of things, if the client isn't totally privy to how that process works, that can make the builder, us, look bad, because it's like, oh well, you knew that this design was going this way. Why are you telling me I'm over budget? And that hurts us as an industry. And then we're back to racing to the bottom on how do we build something that is, grander than the budget, and do it at a quote unquote discount. In other words, taking a hit on our profit and putting us in a tailspin around cash and being able to support the trades.
How do you think you're impacting the people around you, less like industry wide, but how do you think you're impacting your network of people right now, Austin?
In general, I would say our company operates on a little bit of a different wavelength when it comes to how we work with and treat our trade partners and vendors. And most of them have either said or implied that they would rather work with us than work with some of the other general contractors, developers, and builders in town. And I think that's because of the attitude and behavior that our superintendents and project managers show. More often than not, they're in the trenches right next to the plumber, helping get something done or figure something out. If somebody needs, a bucket of lag screws, and nobody on the framing crew has a company credit card, we'll just go grab them. Stuff like that. We have a pretty strong servant leadership mindset, and it's not by accident either. It's something that's talked about often. that our job on any given project is to serve the trade partners, serve the client, do everything that we can do in our control to make their life easier. So I think we are making an impact that way.
And it like just listening to that, to me, that's something that, although it may seem like a small scale, that does have the opportunity to kind of grow legs, as you talk about that, as your trades are exposed to that, as you bring more people into the company, as you're building for other people to see what that relationship looks like. And just like, I always made it a point, not in a way where I'm looking to be condescending towards somebody else, or some people will take it as like, hey, that person's looking to be arrogant, or like basically standing on a soapbox. But to actually delineate between like your process and what other people are doing and why you're doing that, and understanding exactly why the trades appreciate working with you, I think that ends up rubbing off on a lot more people than you probably realize. And maybe it's not hundreds of thousands of people, but within your market you could definitely shape what that experience looks like and what those interactions look like for subcontractors and partners and people who are working for you. And I think that it's a bunch of those little decisions and little mindsets that actually cumulatively wind up making a much larger difference and a much larger impact than things like Nick and myself are doing. Because when you look at how many opportunities guys like you have, it's like, do you put a lot of miles on your car in a year by taking cross country trips? Or is it just the daily commuting that adds to your mileage? And it's the daily commuting, it's the little things, it's all of the companies that make up our industry that are smaller companies that really can actually impact our industry far greater and more efficiently, a lot more so than just Nick and myself, and the impact that we have. At least that's how I see it. You guys are boots on the ground, and that stuff can spread like wildfire.
Yeah, I guess the initial root of my question about skilled trades gap and what folks like me can do comes from, we're pretty active in our Home Builders Association. I'm on the Workforce Development Committee, which is, we work with local schools and try and spread awareness, put a positive light on the trades and the construction industry as a whole. And it just doesn't feel like we're doing anything.
It doesn't feel like you're making an impact, or it doesn't feel like what you're doing is like worth the effort.
I'm not necessarily either of those, but it feels like we could do so much more. But having to operate within the confines and red tape of the Home Builders Association and run everything through them, as opposed to the 3 or 4 of us that are the younger guys in the group and kind of on the leading edge of things, just going out and doing our own thing. I think we could make a lot bigger impact.
Yeah. And is there any wiggle room with the Home Builders Association as far as like negotiating those terms, or are they is the mentality just like, this is the way it has to be?
They just kind of want to be in the driver's seat of all of it.
And are they the ones who are funding
Yeah.
those programs?
Yeah. So we, like, during the school year, probably once every month or every other month, I don't know, 5 or 6 times, I suppose, during the course of the school year, a group of us will go to different middle schools and we'll build a little birdhouse or a squirrel feeder or something like that with a group of
Build a bridge for some deer.
K through 3 students, and it's fun. And I personally enjoy it. It's hard to carve time out to make it every time, but that's like almost the extent of what we're doing, or at least what I've been able to get involved with. And I feel like there's a demographic in the middle school and high school age that I'd like to and think we should be targeting, as opposed to younger kids. I guess the data shows that kids are narrowing down their career choices pretty significantly by like 4th or 5th grade. So I think that's what they're trying to do, is keep it in the back of their mind.
Maybe. I think that like the move would be to try and prove that there's alternative means and methods to get the information out there and to influence or encourage people to join the trades more so than those opportunities. Like, I think that those opportunities are cool. But to me, I don't see a ton of value, like, other than, hey, this is just boosting our own ego, or this is a feel good opportunity for us that we can go in and we can do these kind of things from like an actual practical approach to getting kids to join the trades. I don't know if people coming in and teaching me how to build a fucking bird feeder are going to make me want to build houses and deal with the shit that we deal with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I don't intend to be ignorant, but realistically, maybe you capture 1 out of 100 kids doing that. But I think that like the bigger impact is when kids are 16 to 18 years old and they're impressionable and they're at the point where like they're beginning to understand finances and what their future looks like, and that they need to start getting their shit together. And I think that that's the age where it's like, hey, here are the options, here are the career paths, here are the investments, what it looks like, and here are the opportunities for you. And then actually having those positions available for them, to me, you would be able to capture and attract far more individuals at that age for long-term success within the trades than like doing a Home Depot craft. To me, that's just like, that's feel good kind of stuff. Where it's like, bring your parents to work there. Let's see what the firefighter does.
Yeah. It
I
is.
don't
It's like
know.
a career day, and they have options. But I agree with you. I would prefer to target a little bit older age group where they can kind of hear you out on the value and benefits and the need for plumbers, electricians, framers, whatever the case may be.
It's tough. Like, at the end of the day, you have to look at it from the mindset of what kids are growing up with these days too. Like, my oldest is in 6th grade now, and the way that how much money kids make doing being an influencer, being on YouTube, the stuff that really attracts kids these days, it's so far from working with your hands or working in the trades that I like it. It's really, really difficult to inspire kids to get into this. And I think that a lot of what we promote as far as like dirty hands, clean money, blue collar trades, like, is just lip service and us convincing ourselves that this is what we want to be doing. But it's not until we actually create an environment where people can come in and they don't have to kill themselves, and there is job security, and they can basically make whatever they want to make that's comparable to what other profession, like, you can't pitch the trades as, hey, you can do this and you won't have to spend this on college. Like, it can't be a concession of sorts. It has to be like, hey, you can do this and it can provide you with job security. It can provide you with time off. It can provide you with benefits. Like, that's the sell. I think that when you're trying to pitch it from an angle where it's like, hey, you won't have to pay for college, because at the end of the day, like, everything's so expensive now that if you spend 100 grand, 200 grand on college, like, that's kind of nothing in the grand scheme of things when you look at the cost of life. And I think that it needs to be like, hey, you can make this much money, and you don't have to kill yourself, and you can work to get yourself to a point that you can move up through the ranks, and then you get into an office position. Because I think that that's what a lot of people do. You learn the trade and then you work your way into an office position. I think that that might be the path, but it can't just be, hey, you're going to save money on college, or, hey, you can't sit still, so this is the path for you. It has to be like, hey, this is a really good living that you can make. And I don't think that we've provided that for anyone yet. Not on a big scale.
No, I would agree with that.
So I think that that's the struggle. And I mean, we spoke with Kevin O'Connor years ago regarding that, and it's the reason for so many small companies that make up our industry, because it's like, how many companies within the United States have the opportunity and the market and the means to be able to offer competitive wages and salary and insurance and health benefits? Like, you have to be able to sell a certain volume of work or a certain caliber of work to be able to afford those employees, and that's not what most of our industry is made up of.
And those are changes we made all in the last 6 months, maybe 8 months, is like a legitimate benefit program that would compare to jobs outside of the construction industry.
And who was responsible for getting that ball rolling?
We met as a group, some of our controller, the owner, myself, office manager, and we're just looking at projected growth and thinking of how many qualified and capable people we're going to need to hire over the next year, 2 years, 5 years. And that had come up in a couple of potential hire interviews or folks that had turned down a job, was that, yeah, the hourly wage is great, but this is the value of an insurance policy from another employer. They may pay me a little bit less per hour, but I'm netting more money at that job. And I just feel better about things, having a really good health insurance plan through that company, or having dental and vision available, or we just gave everybody a gym membership the last month or so. So we're trying to do things to make it a little bit more enticing to come work here, and generally take care of our people and make sure that they have the opportunities to be healthy.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break from the podcast and remind you to head over to moderncraftsman.co. You can find more information about us. You can download some freebies. We got a labor burden calculator as well as our pre-construction agreement up there. But most importantly is hit that subscribe button, sign up for our newsletter. This is where you're going to get all of the information behind the scenes. You're going to get information prior to podcast release. You're also going to get information on stuff that we're working on that we're just not sharing with the general public. So if you want to know more, head over, hit that subscribe button, or at least take advantage of the free downloads that we have on the website. So let's get back to the conversation.
So there's so many things I want to ask you on that, but like, even just right off the bat, when you think somebody who's coming to you, who's looking possibly to make the same or less hourly rate, but have like benefits and healthcare, is a much different individual than somebody who is just looking for a paycheck. Like, you're attracting somebody who would go get a job anywhere else, who would, join the white collar workforce, so to speak. Like, you're looking for a professional at that point. You're not looking for a 17-year-old kid who just wants to make enough money that they can buy the shit that they want and go hang out. And like, there's nothing wrong with that, but like, the environment that you're creating there is really like attracting a different person to the industry just by offering those things, and not even necessarily a higher dollar paycheck. You're just attracting people who have a family, who have responsibility. And that's not a blanket statement, but those priorities are indicative of a person who has more than, hey, I just need to pay my bills right now.
Yep.
How did you got, like, is that something when you're building that into the cost of your business? Because realistically, that can't just be like, hey, we're going to make less money now. But you're looking to put that in place so that as your business grows, you guys can afford better employees, and you're setting yourself up for growth. But how do you make that happen in the meantime, where the overhead may not justify that?
Well, everybody that we're building a custom house for, we just sent them a change order and told them that we got all of our memberships.
Easy enough.
No, we spent a decent amount of time going through burden rates and the true cost of each employee, and updating some of our fee percentages and how we run site supervision through budgets and stuff like that. So we did put the work in to understand what it was going to cost us.
I mean, that's step one, right? I think that's what everyone skips over. It's like they would just add that as a benefit and not really fully understand what that means. And it's like I know it sounds like elementary advice, but I mean for the first 5, 6, 7 years of running my business, it was I just made decisions with no real data. It's like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that. And I remember sitting down and calculating what labor burden was for a particular employee. I've talked about, but we update our labor burden on all our employees on every 6 months just to like go through and make sure like stuff is accurate. And it's crazy what it adds up to. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, man, I'm billing you out at a pretty high market rate, like for your position, like your billable rates considered to be high, but I'm not making any money on that
Mm-hmm.
because like based on like what you cost the company, whether that's benefits, whether I mean typically it's related back to their benefits package,
Yeah.
because it just it can add up very quickly. And I think that's like, I mean, Austin, like you want to talk about how you help the industry. It's like the fact that you're doing that and making decisions based on data. It's like sharing that and talking about that and like guiding someone else through that process where it's like, yeah, those are the little things that make a company, we'll call it successful, profitable, right? Where it's like you can operate a long time and not understand those numbers and not understand why, at the end of the year you owe all this money to taxes but don't have any cash in the bank. It's like, yeah, you're not actually making as much money as you think you are.
So, what is the sell to your customer? Because at the end of the day, like whatever work you're putting in place is offsetting all of those burdens and everything else. So, is it that you have to have a certain volume of work to be able to offset those costs, or a specific customer, or a combination of both? And what is the value add for your clients to say, hey, let's hire Austin and his team rather than somebody who we can save, a half a percentage point on the cost of the job because they don't offer all of those things.
I think the sell to get work for us is primarily relationship driven. Our most of our residential work comes from within network of so Caleb, who owns the company, is a very well connected guy in town, and a lot of our work is coming from people in that network or referrals to people outside of that network from a friend of a friend or something of that nature. And I think that's driven by the experience people have had with working with us and how well they get treated. We're honest, we answer the phone, treat people with respect, tell the truth. And that covers, we've had some project delivery issues over the last year just with our ability to manage schedules and manage budgets on some complex projects. And it doesn't completely wash it away if you act as a decent person, but it does help and it goes a long
Yeah.
ways.
I mean, like for us to all sit here and act as if every job goes perfectly, we deliver them on time, on budget, and the client's happy, that's just a crock of shit. But at the end of the day, if you have people working for you who are like happy to be there and feel as though they're treated kindly, no job's going to go according to plan. Most jobs are not going to get delivered exactly how the scope was communicated when it was supposed to be communicated. But if like the interaction between client and subs and owner is an amicable relationship throughout the process of the job, that's going to make for a much better experience than something that may go off the rails at points during construction, which is completely unavoidable, and everyone has a terrible attitude on the project.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't
And
want to paint the picture that everything's all roses over here either. We are far from perfect.
yeah, but like that's unavoidable, and
Right,
like people
everybody
have,
is.
yeah, everyone is going, and like the more you take on, the more you grow your company, the harder it is to keep your finger on the pulse of that and control that. And I think that like that's a learning experience. But then like the differentiator there is that when things don't go according to plan, you have people working for you who are being taken care of, who are then willing to basically stick their neck out for the person who's employing them because
Right.
they're being treated well. You know, they have more than just a paycheck. They have job security, they have benefits, their families being taken care of. And I think that like that there's a cost that comes along with that, but there's an amazing amount of value from a business perspective to have those type of people on your project when you're hiring a company. And that's not to say that every single person's going to have a great attitude, but for the most part, when you have people that don't feel as though they're being taken advantage of, they're going to be willing to go the extra step or take the extra 5 minutes to get things like to maintain the relationships on those projects. And I think that that's like a huge sell and a huge value add for the right client.
Yeah, I think at the center of it, probably all kind of turns back to we don't necessarily like throw it in people's face and talk about it at every opportunity, but we are a Christian company run by Christian men who take a lot of pride in the way that we treat people and the way that we reflect our faith through our work. And I think that has a pretty big impact on it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like we had Charles on not that long ago who like a lot of his principles for business was obviously faith driven, but having something that grounds you and grounds your business more so than just like the financials or
Right.
what one person wants, and having a mutual understanding of what the end goal is definitely important, and I think like definitely contributes to success as well. But you asked like how are there ways that you can basically affect and attract a younger generation to the industry? And to me, there's no more like meaningful, impactful way than providing work for people and like good work for people, and also supporting them and benefits and like an actual career path for them, not just a job, not just a paycheck. That's the type of thing that when somebody's looking at career opportunities when they're 16 years old and they're like, hey, this business, I can get my foot in the door as a laborer, I can work my way up, and there's all of these benefits, there's this pay scale, there's this room for improvement and growth within the company. Like that is going to change what our industry looks like on a larger scale, because if everyone followed those standards, the cost of construction would go up, the cost of hiring somebody to do the work would go up. It'd be a more level playing field, and I think that everyone playing by the same rules would definitely better the industry, and I think attract more people to it.
I would almost argue that,
Yeah.
like, yes, the cost of construction will and likely will go, or can and likely will go up, but where my mind goes with that comment is instead of the cost of construction going up, just find like forcing the innovation around efficiency. And because it is like it's this race to who can build the biggest and most for the least. And it's like if we can change that mindset and be like, all right, well, you can build a big home and it doesn't have to be like in one of our exercises right now with the house that we're pricing, it's like we're basically locked into what it's going to cost, and it's $500,000 more than they want to spend, and we're looking amongst each other. It's like, how do we? Is there a world? Is there a path to get to where they want financially? And it's not. The house is designed in a way that there's unless we redesign it, and then you're in this position of like, well, now what about your sunk costs?
Yeah,
It's
how
like
much you going to spend on
on redesigning. It's like you'll spend a half a million between consultants to redesign the project to maybe be where they want to be from a price point. And it's so when I say efficiency, it's like it really is that refined approach to taking these incremental steps, in the planning process and trying to fully understand something, especially from a cost perspective, before it is baked, because it is like, I think just in general stuff gets baked very quickly, and then we're finding out the price of it after,
Yeah.
and then it's just like, all right, well, the only person we can beat up right now is the guy that's going to do the physical work, so let's see if he'll budge on the price.
I mean, it's just going to take time to change also. I mean, you look at any industry and there's industries that are similar to ours, like the restaurant industry, right? Where you're looking for people in the kitchen and servers where you're probably not offering them great pay. And a lot of times they're hiring cash help, the landscaping industry stuff, things like that are similar to what we're dealing with. But then there's other industries where, you go to the bank and like the cost of banking with a bank, it accounts for all the benefits that they offer their employees and the pay scale. It's just built into it. And our industry right now, like the basis for our numbers, that stuff is not built into it. And I think once it is, I don't know like if it's going to be more or less, whatever it may be, like it just will be different. But it's not a standard within our industry right now. So you can still be legal and not offer people benefits. So like that's the difference, right? You could say that, well,
Right.
there's people who aren't pulling permits and who aren't licensed and everything else, but that's just like, that's not apples to apples. But realistically, like you're still a legal operating business
Yeah.
regardless of if you offer employee benefits or not.
Yeah.
And I think that once that is just built in the cost of what our industry demands, I think that people will pay it. Like if you got to go get gas, whatever the cost of gas is, you pay it. If you have to go bank, you pay it. If you go to the hospital, like that's the way it is. But we're giving people a choice right now. And a lot of people, when it comes down to it, if they can reduce the cost, that's the path that they're going to go. It's a tough position to be in, but I do think that what you're doing has probably a far greater impact than you realize it does, not even just for your immediate network of people, but for people in your area, people who are exploring jobs, getting out of high school, entertaining, getting into the trades, looking at what your offerings are. I think that your ability to impact people is probably more than you realize.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, Tyler, like your comment about being legal and not having to offer all that, because, I mean, you know, there oftentimes when you're talking about, when if you're pricing up against someone, like for example, us, it's like, we might be pricing up against another guy that is, as they call it, a chuck in a truck. And it's like, but the reality is like, that doesn't mean he's a worse builder or his experience sucks or any, like he quite frankly might be better at building than we are. And he has this enormous opportunity, or or offering, basically saying like, I have no overhead, it's just me, I can come in and I can execute at a really high level.
I feel like you're talking to me right now. Why are you looking at me like that?
Like, am I pricing against Tyler? Ah, shit.
Chuck.
We gotta come up with a name for Tyler in a something in a van. But I mean, and I just want to say that out loud, because I think a lot of times we compare that as like a negative thing. It's like, oh, well, you don't want just some, Joe Schmo or just some chuck in a truck. It's like, well, that doesn't mean he's a bad contractor or a bad builder or anything. It's just a different experience. And I think, I saw this video recently and I shared it with my team. It was a guy had taken out like a coffee cup and it was like filled with candy with a bow on it. It was like some sort of gift, like a a gift thing that you would buy at like a gift shop, right? And he puts it on the table and there's this girl across from him and she's like, yeah, I think it's it's her product that she sells, and she's talking about how it's a unique product, and she thinks it like does really well, and then he reaches down and picks up another cup, and it's from another company, another gift shop that fills it with candy, and it's quite literally the same thing, and he's like, how is your product unique to this? And it goes on to, like, I'll send it to you on Instagram, but it's like, it goes on to explain, like, it's not always about the product. It's about the experience. And
Yep.
and quite frankly, most of the time it's not about the product. And it's all linked back to the experience. So, and again, like, Chuck's experience might be better than yours, or it's just different than yours. Where it's
I
like
mean,
you're
realistically, like that's how I'm able to make money being small. I don't like a lot of people remain small to offer like a competitive price advantage within their market.
Mhm,
I'm not doing that. Like I want to be able to make better margins, not necessarily by being less money, but by finding the people who want the experience of the smaller owner operator. And when that's important to them, and it's not so much about, we want to turn this job around quickly, we want, a PM on the job that's devoted to the job, like I can sell a job and make really good margins on it, and that's how I'm able to do less work and make more money. So it's definitely not apples to apples. It depends on how you're structured and how you're set up.
mhm,
We're putting a lot of, well, specifically, I'm putting a lot of effort at the moment into our client experience on the residential side and trying to clean that up a little bit. As fast as we've grown, going from just a couple of dudes building a couple of houses to a fairly legitimate company at this point, and building some of the larger, more luxury driven homes in the market right now, trying to drive home the point that our client base is business owners. They're members of boards. They're like, their expectation for communication, for documentation, for reporting is so much higher
Yeah.
than we're used to providing. And it's been a tough jump for us to get there, because all of our PMs and superintendents for the most part are really good carpenters, good communicators, good at solving problems, pretty bad at documentation, and just the overall like kind of back end of project management. So we did just hire somebody to take all of that off of their plate and my plate to run schedules, budgets, and hopefully bolster the client experience side of things, and our overall project delivery, I think, will get a lot better.
Did you guys have like complaints regarding that end of like your client experience, or is that something that you just realized you wanted to improve on?
Not explicit complaints, but the amount of times that I'll take a phone call from a client because they're not sure if they should call the lead finish carpenter, who's also an employee of ours, or if they should call accounting, or if they should call their project manager, or if they should call me. It just feels like our communication and overall delivery could use a step up, and make sure expectations are set on the front end for communication plans. But I would say specifically, no, we haven't gotten complaints that people are having a bad time. If you kind of sit back and read the room, it's felt like it could get a lot better
Yeah.
by just pulling a few levers.
How about like what specifically have you guys heard was a negative aspect of the client experience that like you've struggled with on the residential side? Like what has been, other than what you're just referring to, what do you think is the biggest struggle that you guys have faced, that clients have been the most either just unhappy with or disappointed with? And it doesn't necessarily have to be unique to you, I guess.
I think the grander picture from a client's perspective would be our ability to maintain a schedule.
Yeah.
But I think if you dig into that a little bit further, it's our ability to communicate what information and decisions we need and when we need them, and to make sure that we get them when we need them.
And
Then we're a month off schedule, and we're late and they're trying to figure out how to get out of their current house and a transitional plan. Like, why are you guys so far behind? And then, you didn't have your tile selection done in time, so we were delayed on tile. We'll prove it. Well, it's probably in a text message from 9 months ago. So
Yep.
Good luck.
That's what Nick and I were discussing, and even through like our pre-construction course that we're putting out, where like this, just because you're not necessarily aligned with the hypothetical schedule that you produced at the beginning of the project doesn't mean that you're not maintaining the schedule of that job, because there's so many different moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're managing it day to day, week to week, and that like schedule is constantly evolving, and you're constantly adapting that schedule to whatever is happening real time with that project, and the communication's there, and the customers, it's in a language that the customers understand. It's the same thing with budget. Like, you may not be over budget. It's just that the scope is different than what the contract scope you bid on. And so for me, like, all that is communication.
Yeah. That's the root of all things, basically.
Yeah. And like, if it's a budget issue because of schedule, like, and you didn't articulate how much more that was going to cost, then yeah, that's communication again. Like, but if the customer understood, yeah, that was an extra $15,000 and it added this amount of dates to the schedule, and signed a change order on it, met with you and had a conversation on it, and the schedule was updated and the budget was updated immediately for the next billing cycle, and not waited until 2 months down the road where you're catching up on your billing, like, it's a non-issue most of the time because the customer made the decision. And again, that's just communication entirely.
Yeah, generally, good communication, clear communication solves a lot of problems.
It's
hard.
It's
Go ahead, Nick.
Well, Austin, it's not even good or clear communication, because I think that is really like it's not that it's hard to do the other, but I think that's easy to obtain. It's almost as though you need, like, there is this need for over communication, and I do think that we oftentimes think that, well, we don't want to over communicate because it's just going to be annoying. But the reality is like, sure, it is annoying, but the moment that there is, I question, or a client questions something, like, it's going to be very hard for that client to feel comfortable to come back and push back on it. And like, I have my phone just dinged, and I look down and I have a notification from one of our trades that works off of like one of those Service Titan or whatever it is, like, programs, where it's like the moment I reach out and say, hey, can you come and check on something, it's it doesn't seem to be operating appropriately, I get an email, a text message, a reminder. The next morning I get a reminder, the next morning, and then it's like, we're on our way, we're 10 minutes away, we're 5 minutes away, we're here, we completed the work, here's your report. It's so much information, and like, it's annoying, but the moment a week goes by and I'm like, did they fix it, or how do I know they fix it? It's like, I can't question that. And I think that's why we've implemented, we still need to make improvements, but it's why we've implemented the over communication in terms of, we're doing daily logs, weekly recap emails, weekly recap videos, meeting agendas, meeting minutes, budget updates, and it's just this overwhelming amount of communication. Now, we're not just pinging you saying, hey, review this, review this, review this. It's just like, the information is there, and it's in every medium, so the client knows what's going on. And Tyler's right. It's when someone says they were over budget, they were behind schedule, it's there's a very high likelihood that they were neither, and they just weren't the builder contractor wasn't communicating that when things changed, that changed the cost and or time. Even if it was blatantly obvious. And that's where, I think again, I'm generalizing contractors, but that's where we typically will just be like, what do you mean? The client obviously knew when they added a third car garage on their house, that obviously that was going to put us behind schedule and over budget. It's sure, like, that is a reasonable assumption to make. but you banked on the assumption that they knew that. And instead of just communicating it because you felt as though that was an obvious thing, it's, instead of filtering what you communicate to the non-obvious and the obvious, you communicate everything. And then then you completely get rid of the ambiguity around, around the communication issues. Client experience, I think, is something that our industry as a whole lacks, because we tend to be in this defensive mode of protecting being over budget and and behind schedule, where it's like, fix the communication side, be super thorough and over communicative, and then focus on the client side of it, of like, how do I make this experience amazing for them? And I've recommended this book 1,000 times, and I'll recommend it 1,000 times again, but it's like the Unreasonable Hospitality book. It's like, that book is such a great example of how very little things make an experience that much better. And and if you think about, like, my wife and I took my wife away a couple months ago to this. They had those like micro cabins in the woods, and this place was like 5-star, like supposed to be this amazing experience. And
I still can't believe that is where that is.
Yeah, near your Rachel's parents. And I must have told the story on the podcast, but it's like, we had this like, the experience was cool, it was super cool, and then they fumbled due to a technical mishap on the way that they scheduled our dinner, and did nothing about it. And it wasn't like I wasn't asking for anything except for, like, I just want to eat dinner. And they fumbled it, and they just couldn't get out of the side of, like, my computer's telling me that this is not how I operate. And it ruined my entire experience. Like, I would I would never go back to that place, because that just left such a terrible experience. And as a contractor, it's like, when we get to the punch list, and the punch list takes a year to complete, it's like, well, yeah, I probably won't go back to that builder, because that's how the experience ended. And
you know what?
Yeah.
Like, I think that the most screwed up part about the whole schedule and budget conversation is that, like, most of that is bestowed on us by ourselves, because, like, the entire process, the entire system is just broken and screwed up, where it's like the did my audio just cut out? Can you hear me?
No, I think Austin might have hit mute or something.
Oh, I was going to say it got like really quiet. It got screwed up from the get-go, where it's like, the project was over budget. You wanted to get them back on budget. You wanted to maintain the schedule, because that's what they were hung up on. So you basically lie about the budget, you lie about the schedule in order to land the job. So day one, you can't do anything about budget and schedule. So you're either trying to maintain that, you're trying to, like, sweep it under the rug, you're trying to put it off as long as you can before you have the conversation where it's over budget. And then you're at this weird crossroads where it's like, I'm either going to eat this, or the client's going to be really unhappy about it. And the more I do this, and the more I understand that it's so impossible to project the costs of a renovation or a new build for anything that's not cookie cutter repeatable in a development. Like, it's so hard to predict how long something's going to take, that, like, so much of that conversation has to be during the selling, where it's like, hey, we're going to create a budget, and we're going to create a schedule, and we're going to try and manage this according to what's most important to you. And that, like, all of this is made up. Like, all your numbers, all your projections, everything that your subs have created as far as pricing and schedule and scope goes, like, it's all just made up. And I think that we're so afraid to have that conversation, because we're supposed to be the professionals. We're supposed to know it all. This is how our industry has been like, set up for so long, where more and more I have that conversations with customers that, like, this is why I'm pricing it this way. This is why the schedule looks like this. These are my goals. I need to understand what's important to you. Is the move-in date is the most important? Is maintaining the budget most important? Is getting you, like, the design, executing the design the most important? Because as we progress through this project, day one, everything's going to go out the window. And then it's going to be managing this project according to what's the most important to you. And that allows me to preserve my margins, make the customer happy, and execute the job according to what's a best case scenario for everyone and contractually what you're obligated to do. But for some reason, like, we're all afraid to have that conversation, whether we need the work, whether, things are slow. We're just over promising and over committing and not being realistic with clients that, like, at the end of the day, this is just all made up. Like, we're just guessing at everything. And I think that we end up shooting ourselves in the foot because of that.
So if you sell a client on a pre-construction agreement, and getting back to the schedule and the budget being made up, I feel like you're encouraging them to go with the guy who's not asking for money for pre-construction, as opposed to upselling that pre-construction charge and saying that we're going to put extra effort into making this shit up, more effort than that guy's going to put in. I don't know if we could have it both ways. I get what you're saying. Like, we're getting paid for pre-construction. We were working off historical data from a different house, and
no, but that's the selling point for you, Austin. That's the selling point for you as the contractor. The selling point for the client is that you find out what their goals are and you meet the goal.
True.
It's not,
and that, you have a basis to manage that off of it. Like, it's not thrown out the window at that point, but you can choose how to manage that to try and, again, hit the customer's objectives and the customer's program. Like, if you get into it and things start changing and they're like, the schedule's really, really important to us, we'll throw more money at this. Like, we still have everything that we need to understand budget, to understand timeline. That's not all thrown out the window. Like, you created a basis for what that project looks like. You're not like, what ends up happening on the other jobs is it goes out the window and then it just costs you money. So is the client okay with a contractor losing money? And then at that point, like, taking shortcuts, being annoyed, having a really terrible relationship, not punching the job out. There's only a specific client that's going to be willing to hire you for that and sign up for that. And I like, it's all made up, but I'd rather have that, like, wags and swags, and have somebody who did the due diligence to understand what that should look like based on a lot of historical data, than somebody just going in and being like, hey, we're not going to charge you for it. We have no point of reference. We're just going to wing this regardless.
Or say they do have point of reference, Tyler, and they're like, all right, yeah, we'll put together an estimate. And they put together an estimate and it's $2 million, but their budget was $1 million. And then the client's like, well, how do I get it to $1 million? It's like, well, you'd have to redesign it. All right, I'll go back to the architect and redesign it. All right, architect, I need to redesign it and cut half the scope. All right, here's a revised estimate. Here, can you estimate this one? Yeah, sure, that's $1.5 million. Oh, I still need, it's not a collaborative process where it's like it's like, hey, I can come in, I do get paid for pre-construction. So what I want to do is I want to set the stage as to what your goals are. Your goal is $1 million? Great. All right. And we're going to start design, and then you're working collaboratively with the design team, and the design team is sharing their process, ideally, right? Like, they're bought into this process as well. And you're saying, hey, we're trending in a direction that's $2 million. And the goal is $1 million. So what you're proposing to do is outside of what the goal is. And now you're retained and you have skin in the game because you're being paid for this. So you're encouraged to get this thing on track and on the budget. So for the client side, it's like, hey, rather than working with a builder that's going to estimate it once and maybe kick you back to the design, like, we can manage that process. So as design unfolds, we can be there as a consultant to make sure that we're value engineering the appropriate things and ultimately get you what you're looking for. And that's the benefit that you need to sell to the client. And again, selling is very much, outlining the benefits of why it's important to that homeowner.
I mean, I look at a lot of things within our industry where I try and mimic some of, like, I try and aim for some of the luxuries that other industries afford themselves. And like this would be an extreme example, but it's like, say you need some sort of weird surgery that hasn't been done and you're going to hire a doctor, and one doctor's like, listen, we've never done this before, but we can do it for this amount, versus the doctor who's like, hey, we've never done this before, we want to spend 6 weeks trying to figure out what this surgery looks like. It may or may not go according to plan, but once we get in there, we have a plan that we can assess and we can alter. It will cost 30% more. Like, there's a specific client who's going to be like, listen, I don't really care that much. I'm not going to use this new part. I just need to be able to live. Let's go that route. And then there's going to be the one who's like, hey, I've been an athlete my whole life. I want to continue having a very active lifestyle. I have grandchildren and everything else. Like, I'd rather have the plan in place. And it just comes down to who you're selling to and what makes you money, and who your ideal client is, from a business perspective, and understanding that as well. There's always a program. There's always a right customer and an ideal client. And it's definitely not for everyone. So I do think that you're on to something with that, Austin. Like, I wouldn't discount what you said. Like, that's a very realistic concern and something that'll probably happen to a lot of people.
Yeah, nothing ever goes to plan. Shifting gears, I have a question for you, Tyler.
Uh-oh.
You posted something on Instagram, I think it was yesterday or the day before, of putting a pre-assembled jam extension and casing onto a window.
Yep.
And you wrapped the jam extension outside the frame, is what it looked like? Or did I look at that wrong?
So that is an Andersen window, and it's pre-finished jam. So then I have an additional jam extension, but there's almost like a rabbet in the edge of the frame for that to
really?
slide onto. Yeah, so it's like pre-finished up to a point, and then there's a rabbet, and then the jam extension like goes into that. So they kind of have the reveal like preset on that.
I gotcha. I watched that like 100 times. Like, I'd never seen somebody do that before.
No,
slide it outside the frame.
no, it
Tyler,
like,
you tagged Taylor Swift.
hell yeah, dude! I'm trying to get her to hire me.
Yeah, that's amazing.
we don't install a lot of Andersen Windows lately.
Yeah, so like
I probably don't know the product well enough.
I don't know
Sorry,
when.
I forgot they're a sponsor.
No, I don't know when they start. No, and they're perfectly fine with that as well. Like, I've installed Pella where it's not like that, Marvin where it's not like that. I don't know when they started doing that, or if it's just on their casements and one was a picture. I probably have photos of it up close, but yeah, it's like it's stepped back, so that like when you put that piece in there, it's like a very clean fit. That you could. What's nice about it is, if maybe they started doing it with all the black windows, but like if you have a painted jam going up against a black like factory jam, that joint, if you fit it right, wouldn't need to be caulked, and you could just like paint your jam going up to it, and it'd be a really clean transition.
That makes sense.
Which is kind of nice. But yeah, I didn't it wasn't any like ingenious solution that I came up with.
It's new to me.
I kind of like it though. It makes it's very fast, and it makes for like a very good fit.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
What else is going on?
Nothing. I am sick right now. My wife got me sick with freaking COVID.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No, that was still a thing.
I know. Neither did I. And then I was like, she was down for the count, and she's like, this is something more than just being sick. And our oldest was sick last week. It's just that time. I mean, if you have kids, you're sick from when school starts until summer, and then there's like a few week break, and then you start getting sick again. I don't care like how healthy you are, how much you exercise. I feel like I'm just sick all the time. But she was out, like, and she's usually not out, and so she tested, and she's like, "Yep, I have COVID." And then she passed it to me, so I'm on survival mode right now. Other than that, just we've been crazy busy putting out this coursework. We're looking to do some more coursework. We just had the Contractor Coalition Summit up in Boston. I'm traveling a bunch for work the upcoming month, And then it's going to be the holidays. And then I was speaking with Westlake Royal today that like the Builders show is coming up, and I don't know, it's that time of year where you blink and it's
Yeah,
Christmas.
it's bananas. Like someone asked me yesterday when we were at hockey, they were like, "Do you get your Halloween costume?" I'm like, "What? Holy
Yeah,
shit! It's October."
I know.
I
Rachel,
was
my
like,
anniversary is the 15th, so it's a week from today. And I was like, I was laying in, like you had the dream with the inspector.
yeah.
I had the dream where I woke up and I was all loaded up on like ibuprofen and cold medicine and like melatonin sleep gummies. And I woke up like sweating and was like, oh my God, I think it's my anniversary. Oh no, I still have a week to go.
Hold on, I got a
Um,
question. Do you follow the whole traditional gift thing about weddings?
no, Rachel's
But you know
parents
about
give up.
it?
Yeah, like for each year, there's like
A
however many
traditional
years.
gift.
Yeah, Rachel's parents actually do that for us.
So Meg and I have always done it, and
Yeah,
I don't know if she was the one that told me about it. I have no idea, but we this we were 9 years this the 3rd of October, and it's the year of like pottery, and we Meg booked this thing where we went and like painted pottery, which sounds very childish, but it was actually really fun, and like they give you
like the movie, like Ghost or whatever it is.
I never saw a ghost.
No.
But I definitely got way too into it, and I was sitting there for like hours painting this coffee mug. But I had told someone
Right.
they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like the traditional gift, like you know how
Yeah.
every year, and they're like, and everyone I like 10 people I mentioned it to, they're like, never heard of that.
No, yeah, Rachel's parents actually. That's a. I mean, they just get us like something simple for like the
Yeah,
traditional
yeah,
wedding.
it's not overly it's not supposed to be overly done.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
buying
were
pottery that's not an easy
No,
task.
I have a
we
Connect
were
if you
10
want one
years.
though.
You're 10 years, Austin?
We were 10 in this past August. I just Googled it because I
It's
never looked
isn't
at
it
it before.
diamonds?
It's no. It's tin or aluminum.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. But I think the modern but I think if you look at because there's traditional and then there's modern, and I think Meg was like, "Oh, I like the modern one for next year."
Yeah. Sorry.
Modern. Okay, here we go.
What is ours? Ours is going to be 2000.
Oh, yeah.
Ours will be 13.
Modern is diamond jewelry.
Yep.
I failed on both fronts.
You
Whoops.
yeah, you can't choose. You got to go traditional.
Yeah.
Do you have
Oh,
kid?
House
Do you have
dude.
years.
kids, Austin?
Hey, 13.
Oh, kids?
Do you have kids?
Yeah, I have 3.
Oh, nice.
Yep. 6, 4, and roughly 1.5.
Wait, what's the 1.5 years birthday?
February 20.
Oh, you're Nixon is the 23rd. So
What's yours? Like the
Yes.
21st?
mine's the 21st, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't wait, did we talk about that? That our kids are 3 days apart?
I think so. I think when we were in Texas,
Probably, yeah.
Ooh,
maybe
13-year
it came up.
traditional wedding gift is lace.
Lace.
Might be getting spicy this year.
I just looked that up. I'm
I'm
like,
gonna have to
"Whoa."
send that to Rachel. Damn.
We
First
found
time.
out shortly after I came on last time. I think it was a couple weeks after, probably. We found out that our 4-year-old has type 1 diabetes.
Oh
So
no.
What
it's kind of stabilized now, like to the point where we can manage it for the most part. But yeah, there's a couple months there that were difficult at best.
Damn.
The one of the guys at the summit, he was the Rockwool rep, had diabetes, and we were talking to him for a while about it. He got it diagnosed when he was older than that. He was like fifth grade, maybe fourth grade.
Yeah,
Um,
4 is tough.
yeah, that's how did you find out?
Um, we were on vacation in like March in Florida, and she was just an absolute train wreck the whole time, and she was peeing her pants all the time. So we knew something was up. So shortly after we got home, probably a month after, we just kind of dealt with it for a while, and then she was still peeing her pants a lot. I hope she listens to this when she's like 25.
Yeah,
Um, my wife brought her in to see if she had a UTI, was what she thought it was. And no UTI, they did some blood work, and then they had to do more blood work, and then it's like, yeah, pack your stuff. You're going to be here for a few days. She's type 1 diabetic. So it's just mostly behavioral stuff. Like when her blood sugar is super high, she gets pretty irritable. So I think it was running super duper high all the time before we started
yeah.
dosing. insulin and giving her shots all the time and stuff.
That's terrible. I feel like that would be so difficult to manage with kids too.
Yeah, the technology is pretty good. She's like, you can wear a pump that will automatically dose it for you, but she's 4. And
Yeah.
we don't want her to have to carry that thing around all the time. So we just dose her. We like count her carbs at every meal, and we have to give her a shot of insulin to offset that.
Yeah, that's what this guy was telling us, and like his monitor and stuff now basically hooks up to an app, and it'll tell him like when he's trending in a certain direction that he may have to do something. He's like, it's not 100% perfect, but it's
No,
pretty.
my daughter wears one like on the
pretty
back of her arm, and it's connected to a little receiver and to an app on my wife's phone, which then transmits to my phone. So we can kind of always see where she's at, and it'll go off in the middle of the night if she's super low or super high, and we can figure it out from there. But it was a learning curve, that's for sure.
That's scary.
Yeah.
I don't. Is that something that's like hereditary?
They told us no, it's an autoimmune condition that you're born with, and then something triggers it. Some type of a traumatic event or some type of experience.
Probably peeing her pants all vacation. You guys were screaming at her. Why do you keep peeing your pants?
Yeah, we were in the hospital, and I was actually we were like night 2 or maybe 3 that we were in there, and she was sleeping, and I was sitting there talking to my wife, and I was like actually sitting there in tears. I felt so bad for being so hard on her for the last few months.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was just like, she's just a hard kid. She's just really hard-headed, and she can't figure out how to be potty trained and all this stuff. So I felt like a shitty dad for a while.
Well, the thing you have going for is that she's 4, and she will probably soon forget about all of this.
Yeah.
You know?
Not diabetes. I think she'll...
I think that's
hopefully
part of
she
being...
remembers that she has that.
Yeah.
I think it's part of being a good dad is that you constantly question yourself as to whether or not you're being a good dad. Like I hate yelling at my kids, and it's like I constantly catch myself doing it, and I step into the other room and I'm like, why am I yelling at them? They're kids. It's not a big deal. Just let them do their thing.
Yeah.
Right. Like we can be late for church. It's going to be fine.
And it's like, and I walk by their room and they're doing something and I yell again. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I gotta remove myself from the situation because this is just, I'm being a shitty dad right now.
Dude, parenting is hard.
It's so hard, but like, I think that's my point is like, if you're constantly questioning yourself and, you know, holding yourself accountable for trying to be better, like that's all you can do.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think that you're the world's best dad, you never, ever have any sort of secondary thoughts about that, probably an issue.
Yeah.
It seems way less like, I don't know. I feel like I make so many more mistakes as a father than my wife does as a mother.
No, you don't remind her of
makes you
mistakes.
feel that way. I don't know. I'm like fully convinced of like that they were born and bred to be mothers, and like that is innately built within them from day one. They just are most certainly built a lot different, because I don't know if you witnessed your wife give birth, but if I would have had that happen to me once, I would have been like, there's no way I'm having another child, and they're just like ready to go to have another one.
I wouldn't come back from that.
No, I'd be like, all right, we're good. That's it. Done. We'll adopt.
I'm scared to even have a vasectomy.
Dude.
Oh, that was nothing.
Terrified.
Nick texted me while he was getting his done because I called him, and he's like, yo, call you right back, and sent me a picture.
It was above. Actually, I was gonna say it was above the waist, but it was just the head of the doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going ahead of something else.
No. It was just like literally like the guy. I'm sitting there listening to a podcast, and Tyler's calling me. I'm like negative, and I just sent him a picture of the doctor's like head with his face shield on.
Mine was right after I think it was Tina Turner died.
And so they were such a reference.
Dude, it was like just Tina Turner radio. And they're like, do you want to put on anything else? I was like, no, honestly, like this is how I imagined this my entire life. So don't change it now. Oh, it's so funny. It was so, It didn't hurt. It was just awkward. Like
Yeah.
So
my
awkward.
doctor was a woman, and then the nurse was a woman, and then they're like, "Oh, we have this like
Student.
young lady who's training to be a nurse who's in college. Can she come in too?" I was like, "Bring them all in. Like,
Yeah,
let's
it's a
do it."
party.
Yeah. And then she's like, "So, what do you do for a living?" And I was like, "This is basically why I hate getting a haircut, except I have
Yeah.
everything out right now and it's like very uncomfortable." And just had like a full conversation the whole time. And then she's like, "Do you want to see like the part that and I was like, "I'm
What?
good." Yeah, she's like, "This is what," she's like, "If you want to see like before I like do the procedure," I was like, "I'm actually pretty good. It's not like the most attractive area when it's intact. I can't imagine it's any better right now. So let's just get this show on the road and get me out of here. But thanks."
This comes up every time I talk to Nick.
Really?
I think
Vasectomies?
so. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
Damn.
know.
I think so.
It was so, I don't know, like everyone, I had like a half a dozen people tell me like, dude, good luck. I was on a couch for like 5 days, 3 days. Oh yeah, I timed it around like March Madness, and I drove home, picked up the kids from school, and went right back to work.
Same.
Yeah,
It was not bad at all. The only it was like it was sore for longer than I
yeah, it's like
imagined. Not
achy.
constantly, but just like if you hit it or coughed weird, you'd be like, "Is it still supposed to feel like this?"
Yeah.
Which was like months after. Not bad,
Oh,
but like that was the only thing that struck me as being odd. But like the procedure was not bad, and then like next day I was back to it. And you get these really sick like jock strap underwear that you get to keep, so that's just a perk, a
What?
bonus.
I don't remember
You
getting
didn't
those.
you didn't get that?
I don't think
I
so.
needed the extra
I think it's,
support apparently.
no, I think that's because it was your 13th place.
Yeah. It's true.
Well, on the note of yeah, vasectomies and nutsacks, I suppose we should probably call it.
Wrap it
Austin,
up.
Austin, it was great to see you,
that's a
man.
good place to stop. Yeah, thanks for your time, guys. Good to catch up.
I'm
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm stoked to hear what, you know. Obviously, you made it through the BS with the building inspector, but just that you got some cool shit going on, and you remain committed to bettering the industry, and don't forget that you're already doing that. So
Yeah, we're trying. Been quiet on social media lately. Try to get better at that.
it's okay. It's not all social media.
No. For us, it's not really any. We did get a lead for a house that we are actually going to build through social
Well,
media
there
from
you
somebody out of
go.
state.
There's
So
the
it does
ROI.
work. It does work. But no, thanks again, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Man.
Catch you next
absolutely.
time.
Take
Good to
care.
see you. He's such a good dude. Just like so committed to being better, like as an individual, but also like for the industry. Like
Yeah.
every time I talk to him, we talk about vasectomies and being good for the industry. So, you know, we remain consistent.
It's funny because I don't even remember what it was about, but years and years ago, like more than 5 years ago, I don't something was going on social, and he like basically started shit with me about something that I was doing, and then
Oh
he
yeah.
like came back and I don't even know what it was because I didn't really care. But he apologized for it, and I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about, and then realized, and so like I that was always he would like preface any conversation with that, like, "I'm the guy who said this to you online," which is kind of funny, but that was like the introduction to Austin initially for me. But yeah, definitely a good guy. What he's doing super cool, and I'm glad we got him back on with some clear headspace last time. I think he had a lot going on, and I'm surprised that he actually showed up on the podcast. So good for him.
Yeah. Always good to see him. Well, to end it, we keep talking about this pre-construction course, guys. If you're interested, send Tyler or myself a DM. If we have not launched it live, we might be able to get you a pre-launch link to check it out. So shoot us a message either at the Modern Craftsman or at Mr. Tyler Grace or at Nick Schiffer, and we'll get you that link.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about it, it's not released yet. Might be released by the time this comes out, but I recorded a midweek episode about it. It's 82. So you can either hop on the website moderncraftsman.co and read the blog post or listen to the podcast. And it explains just a little of what we're doing, what it entails, why we're doing it, and how I feel this is just immensely beneficial to not only your business, your margins, your bottom line, your customer experience, but also benefiting the industry as a whole.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next week.